94.9 WDKB. It's the Small Business Development Webinar Series, and this is our final one for the year, and I'm joined by Dr. Jock Samis and a few other guests. Dr. Jock, you want to introduce our guest and tell us about the topic we're going to talk about today?
Well, sure. Let me introduce the guests first, Sean. So we have Tall Paul, as it says on the screen, Paul Olson, who represents or is an owner of an insurance company. And we also have a what would you call a teacher? Someone who molds the minds of youths. So that's Joe Pluscota, who is actually from DeKalb High School. Joe had the unfortunate experience of needing volunteers who were going to help with his entrepreneur course, of which Paul and I are one. There's also a couple of other people, Brian Oster, who's been a friend of the program, as well as the Small Business Development Center, and John Bachman, who also is a friend of the Small Business Development Center. And Joe, Dale is from Sundog, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so our other guy is Dale, whose last name completely escapes me.
Boughton.
Well, thank you, Sean, finally, for some help here. Who is with Sundog, and he also is one of the mentors. So, Joe, can you tell us a little bit about this entrepreneur program where you need guys like Paul and me, since we're the only two here today, who try to help the students?
Sure.
Reliable.
That's right.
There we go. Now I'm going to chalk that up into the reliable category, and you have brownie points on my end. The course is called Incubator, and Incubator is an entrepreneur course, but somewhat in the fashion of a Shark Tank, where the kids are actually putting together their own product and or service, and developing it, everything from ideation to marketing to financial projections, and then actually selling it. By the time that they're done with a full year course here, they could potentially have their own business. Now, where I needed folks to help out are in three different categories. We have members from the business community come in as mentors, coaches, and a board of advisors. The mentors work weekly, bi-weekly, or every 2 weeks with a particular group, a particular team, to help guide them along this process. The coaches themselves, they come in and they are the resident experts on a topic. So they actually instruct class or co-teach with myself. And I try to assist in any particular way, since there's no way to know all of the facets of this endeavor for them. And then the board of advisors, they serve as a halfway point to where the kids will actually pitch their idea that they have been working on for the first semester. The board of advisors give them suggestions and say, listen, we're going to hear you at the end of the year, but this is what we'd like to see you investigate or develop further, because you might be, we want you to go in the right direction. So at the end of the year, the kids have a final pitch where they could potentially be awarded seed money for their business.
So, Joe, I hate to ask this question, but obviously Paul and I could not make the being able to teach with you because we're mentors, correct?
Actually, a mentor can be a coach, but if you are a mentor, and a coach can be on the board of advisors, but a mentor cannot be on the board of advisors, since we are awarding money and we want to eliminate bias.
So because this is not like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because if you're working closely with the group, obviously, some of that ideation might be yours. And so we wanted to kind of eliminate that from the final pitch.
So this isn't like the real world where who you know actually helps tremendously in getting funding.
Well, yeah, we're trying to avoid that, and not teach those lessons at DHS.
All right. So how did you get involved with this? Were you absent that day and they said, oh, we'll get Joe to do it because he's not here? Or
well, it's kind of
volunteer?
It's kind of a funny story. I had I have taught math over at DeKalb High School for the better part of 14 to 15 years, prior to last year and this year. When I made the move over after the last 2 years with COVID, we had one person in the business department that opened up. There was a vacancy. And I had thought because I used to be an accountant prior to being a teacher. So what I felt is that in the last maybe 5 years of my career, as you can see the snow on the beard, that I'm getting up to that part, that I might want to try to get back to my business roots and try to help out and let some newer people come in and teach math. Well, we had somebody retire, and that was for the first year after the first year of COVID, their replacement came in, stayed for a year, left for something closer to home. So while I'm a few years out, not in the last 5 years before retirement, I felt that lightning usually doesn't strike twice, and that position was open because it's much more difficult to get into this. Now, so I interviewed for the position, as a business teacher. I got it. But one of the caveats was that they had already started with this program. They purchased a curriculum from Uncharted Learning. It's the incubator model. There's a couple others that we could speak of later. But they immediately sent me that summer before the first year in business to training. And I was in what they called a shadow year last year. So what I would do is keep trying to develop this curriculum, ask questions, attend more training. And then this last summer went through another series of training. And here I am. It was our first pilot year trying to get kids to become entrepreneurs and develop a product or service.
So let's start with that. So how did you recruit kids? Are these kids whose parents may have their own business, or you just kind of put it out there and said, hey, who wants to do this?
Believe it or not, I switched and went into every single business class that I possibly could and gave a presentation. The presentation was maybe 15 minutes long, and then held appointments for people to come in and ask questions if they wanted to know about it. So I actively tried to recruit. We have a curriculum day for the kids, that tell about the different courses that are being offered in different departments. So I made sure that I had a stand there. And I think the real, the big part of it, once the word gets out about the course, I don't think we're going to have a hard time getting more kids to sign up.
So the school has purchased the curriculum. How long is it good for? I mean, how many years can you do this?
Well, here's the thing. I could do it probably as many years as long as I don't infringe on any copyrights, with some of their material. What any teacher will tell you is that just because you buy a book, it doesn't necessarily mean that is the Bible, so to speak, for the class. They leave it up to us, the teachers, as the resident experts of our craft, and we manipulate and change things as we see fit. And there's already some things that, after I looked at it and, incorporated that I think I'd change, about the startup and, how everything started up at the beginning of the year. I think that it was very flustering for some of the kids, and I certainly don't want to see that happen to any future classes.
So how many kids did you recruit initially?
Well, originally I had 22 kids sign up, and they only had intentions of running one course, and it would top out at 24. So I was able to get 21 out of 24. However, within the drop period, and I'll have to tell you, this is an interesting thing. We did have some people, we had a series of attrition where kids, signed up, went through maybe the first week or two, and then said, well, you know what, this might not be for me. And what we found with that is that this at other schools that run the same curriculum, and it's supported at other schools, it's offered either as an honors course or a dual credit course. So I was told, since it's the pilot year, we can't quite offer that. We need to see some history established, a baseline, and see how many kids are starting to sign up. but I was also instructed to run it as such. And when you run things as such and you have a business background, I was at 9.5, 10 years as an accountant. Deadlines are deadlines. So some of the kids, well, it was a lot of work to start off with, and they weren't ready for a hard cutoff, because a hard cutoff, if you miss your cutoff for your client, you most likely lose out on the contract. So we were pretty stringent in the very beginning, and kind of filtered through, fleshed out the folks that maybe weren't in it for the right reasons.
So how many do you have currently?
I think we are at 16.
Okay.
I think we are at 16. Let me see if I do a fast count. 3, 9, 13, 15 or 16. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Paul, how did you get roped into this?
Through the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
That's how the opportunity presented itself. And me being a total sold out business geek, I jumped right on board.
Tell us a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so right now I own a shelter insurance agency. Prior to this, my wife and I owned a party rental company for 10 years and bought a candy and ice cream shop in the middle of that. That acted as a customer funnel for a party rental company. We ended up selling those in 2018. I've got the insurance, and then I've got the retail, side of experience and the service-based business. Been director of sales and marketing for a couple of companies, so I felt like my experience would lend itself well to the program.
So what you've seen from the program, how real or unreal is what's going on in Joe's classroom?
I would say it's very real. These kids are being walked through every step by step of what it takes to start a business. And it is a process, right? It's just like learning any other job. The only difference is this is something that you are generating from your own concepts, or you're taking maybe an established kind of business and learning the process for getting it rolling, which I think is really, really, really beneficial for kids, especially nowadays when the job market seems so uncertain and things are changing so fast, and who knows what kind of skill set they're going to need in the future and what they're going to have to draw on. And so I think this process shows them what to do step by step. So if they ever need to tap into that into the future, it's available to them.
Right. So Joe, are all of these companies, in air quotes, do they all have a new idea or a new product or a new service that they're offering, or can they do a franchise idea, or maybe an insurance brokerage firm, or how does that work?
Well, the way this is developed is that kids have to solve a problem. Okay, a problem whether they've experienced, their friends have experienced, their parents, their family members, close friends. So they create a bug list, and then they narrow this down to how could they solve that particular problem. So as a team, they say, well, they rank them, 1 to however many they come up with as a team, and do a tally sheet on which one has the most frequented rating. So they attack the problem. And so it's we do discourage like an app, just because it's very difficult to start off and very difficult to have, to break into that particular market. But products and services are what we encourage, and something perhaps not already established.
So would it be that, Sean, you, Paul, and I know each other from school, we get together and we do it? Or do you pick the members, or do they pick the members, or how does that work?
That's the interesting part, is that originally, there's certain ways that, everybody has this idea of how they're going to, develop their team. We wanted to emulate a business environment to where you got hired on to a place. You can't really pick who you're going to work with. outside of the interview process. So what we did is there was a 3-day activity where at the end of those 3 days, they had to choose one person from each day that they would want to work with. So I created a frequency table of the kids and chose people that would be the head of making a selection, a draft sort of way, and it was a blind draft. So when so everybody chose numbers from a hat, and they were able to select. And so that we did a little round robin. Once one person selected, I took people off the list, sent it to the next person. We went through that. Originally, I think a lot of kids thought that they were going to be able to come in with their friends and then just work in a group as a friend. But you know what happens when you get working with friends, that a lot of times things don't get done, or they're just kind of in the corner, not really doing what they need to do. So in order to try to ensure against that, we did this kind of a blind draft based on the frequency or lack thereof, I guess, of people who wanted to work with whom.
Right. That's a great business lesson. Don't hire your friends, right off the bat.
or your family.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I was going there for sure. Now, Sean has always been picked last in all kinds of games. Sean, do you have any questions for Joe?
Well, you know what? Actually, my questions are for you and Paul. Actually, I think I'm going to turn the table on you on this one.
Oh.
So, as a coach and mentor yourselves, how do you guys feel about your teams and the ideas that they're picking? Not that you have to tell us what the ideas are, but talk about the process by how it just got started. You doing what Joe had talked about, like coming up with different ideas, narrowing it down, seeing the group, and then just your input along the way. Let's start with you, Jock, on your group.
Okay. What's ironic about my group is that they started in one place and ended up in another. But they started in a good place, and I think they're actually in a great place now with the product that they want to do. Because when they actually thought through it, and they took the market from like this to this, which is great when you're selling a new product, because this is a little hard, this is a little easier. Right. Not easy, just a little easier. So I think that was good. And then they also thought about what the first product, this one, was going to cost to make and what it was going to retail for, which made that even smaller. And then they came up with something else that is not only more customers, but more affordable with as much, if not more profit. So I thought that was really kind of interesting. And, Sean, in any group that you work in, certain people do more work than others. And is this true here? Yes, but they're all engaged. And to me, as a teacher, I think that's great. That engagement and their buy-in to this is really something. And I think Joe probably has a lot to do with that because, they're ready. They're Johnny on the spot. They've had their stuff done. And I laughed that Joe said, they had certain deadlines they have to meet or they were out. This is the real world. And again, teaching on the university level, I always used to ask students when it was face-to-face, do you want to know what the book says or do you want to know the real world? And they always pick the real world. So to me, this is spot on. And I don't think, and again, I'm going to get on the soapbox a little bit. Did you see me get a little taller?
I did see that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My calves are killing me now for that. But I will say that this is something that is absolutely needed in high school. And most students don't start that until, maybe they get to college or maybe their upper class years in college. So starting them now, I think is just brilliant.
And I think it's noteworthy to say that we're talking about 11th and 12th graders, right? When we're talking about, what level of high school they're in.
Yes.
So I think it's a great spot for them to be in at that age. Paul, what about your experience so far?
Yeah, so my group had already gone through the vetting process of the idea that they wanted to pursue, and then they had really solidified it. So they've had a great commitment to the product that they want. They're all very focused, and they've really thought through. I really tried to challenge them about the product because it is not an original product. There's other products out there like it. So I really tried to challenge them on imagining what is their unique selling proposition, unique value proposition, what is different about their product, or how their product is delivered versus what already exists. And they've been great. They've been kind of Johnny on the spot in terms of defining what makes their product unique and how to bring it to market.
So like this process that you just talked about, if you're a parent that's listening right now or watching this down the road and you're thinking, I wonder if I should, talk to my kid about going to this, how much input in steering did you have, Paul, I'm talking to you, when it came to the process? Did you see something, a red light was going off in your head like, oh, this is terrible. This is not a good thing. I need to steer them the other way. Or do you let them just talk it out? Do you let them talk it out in little by little? You kind of interject like, hey, like you just said. So how much impact or sway did you have in the process?
So I view this as being a guide and trying to help them think through the business startup process and come to whatever decisions they think make the most sense. I don't see it as me telling them what to do and what not to do. And so I just try to come up with questions when I see something and I think to myself, I wonder if that's really going to work, or I wonder if that's the right approach. I just ask them questions to try to get them to think through the concern, and then let them come to the conclusions they will, because ultimately this is the real world, or a real world example, right? And so if they make decisions that in the end don't end up panning out, well, that happens in business too. And so I want to facilitate that process in whatever way works best. I also want them to find success, but I want them to make the decisions for themselves.
And what about you, Jock? Because, Joe, I think for you, probably that's the great thing about having all these different business people from the community, and everybody's got their own way of doing things. What Paul's doing may not be the way Jock does it, or vice versa. Jock, what about you? What about your path and how you're helping guide the team? What's your approach to that?
I'm one of those guys that always talks about the preseason. What do athletes do in the preseason to get ready? And everybody does the fundamentals. If it's baseball, they're running to first base, the pitcher's getting the ball, hitting it overhand, right? They're doing a double play. If it's football, they're running sprints, they're doing their patterns, they're blocking. Basketball, drills. So to me, it's all about the fundamentals. And if you do those well enough, you're going to be okay. This program, and Sean, when we got the itinerary of what goes on every week, they are working their butts off. This is not for the faint of heart, because the program that Joe's doing is it's this. You have 3 days. I mean, to me, this is everything you need to know to run a business. And as you know, with the Small Business Development Center, we try to make people understand that all the time. Now, these kids are doing it, and it is just amazing to me. The fact that we all come from different backgrounds and we have different points of view, it all comes down to the same thing. Who's the customer, and can we get them to buy it? My analogy is always, what's the most important thing in any business? It's the customers. Because if you can get them to take money out of their pocket and give it to you without you resorting to violence, that's a good business right there.
No wiser words have ever been spoken by Jock to me. So, Joe, this has to be a joy for you to get all these mentors and coaches from all these walks of life and see all these different personalities help guide your teams to the ultimate goal of getting that product and getting it out there.
Absolutely, it is. I'm so happy to have them come in. And the kids are extremely respectful for not only the mentors on the regular and the coaches that come in. They're very appreciative. It is absolutely wonderful to get more, and we're always looking for more. The more the merrier. The more that they don't have to hear my voice alone. right? I mean, we learn from everything, from every single experience. In fact, back to what Paul was saying, is you have to let these kids make these decisions on their own. And even if they fail, right, just be there to pick them up and redirect, because failure is how we learn, right? Failure is how we learn. Many failures, hopefully they're not big ones. Some of us have bigger ones, but it's excellent because they all have the same mindset and they're exactly right about which way they're approaching the kids. Yeah, absolutely a delight.
Now, Paul, I know that there's a pitch week. Does everyone have to pitch their idea, or they don't have to?
So, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe everybody pitches, but not necessarily for the win. Right?
Everybody pitches, but not all for funding. And that's going to be determined on how they've come across after the midway point. Okay, so they are going to pitch originally to the Board of Advisors right after we get back from winter break. And then the Board of Advisors will give them the advice about what they need to change or which direction that they need to go, or any assistance that they could get from the mentors. Mentors and the teams will work together. And then we have a final pitch in the class before a final pitch night, right, where we invite parents and other faculty members and people in the community. Because if, there are, just like anything, if there are still flaws within, the product or the approach, we'd hate to put somebody up in front of a big, large audience, right? And subject them to, that kind of criticism, any kind of criticism, or, bad criticism, I guess. So the idea here is that, we have the kids pitch midway, do a pitch right before the final pitch night. And at the pitch right before the final pitch night, that's the decision of whether to let them move on to get seed money.
And Joe, does the school provide the seed money? I mean, what does everybody get seed money? I mean, how does that work?
I'm so glad that you asked that, because currently we are looking for donors, anybody that angel investors, people that would be interested in helping these kids out. I do have a few folks lined up right now, but obviously, not only it could be used as seed money for their business, it could be used for whatever academic endeavor. Let's face it, everybody likes the prize at the end, right? Especially the 11th and 12th graders. So when they look at that and they say, well, wow, I could legitimately start a business and have X amount of dollars or whatnot to start my business, that becomes very real for them. So, the school does not. We had a grant that doesn't cover, an actual funds that go out. We would have to get that from donors and angel investors.
So there is prize money, but it's all the ancillary things, or not prize money, seed money.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And how would they? What should they do if they had an interest in doing that, Joe?
Well, they can email me here at DeKalb High School, Joseph.Pluskota. That's JOSEPH.PLUSKOTA at D428.org, or Melinda Cattell. She's our assistant principal in charge of curriculum. That would be melinda.cattell at d428.org. And if you don't catch this from the from the podcast, then certainly you can get on the school website and get in touch with one of us.
So if there was anything that you would change, let's just say with the mentors, with us, what would you like us to do to make this better?
Wow. I didn't think about that because I'm just happy to see people showing up and having an interest. I think that, Paul is wearing a dual hat, wearing two hats. He's a mentor and a coach. I think that sometimes, if we're mentors, what happens is that we get a little burned out, but man, it's nice to have more variety of the folks that are, giving lessons, giving their expertise in the area, their content of content concentration. I don't know how much more. I mean, I think the communication has been pretty good. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. The kids are supposed to be getting in touch with you guys on a weekly basis, or at least a couple of days before we're scheduled to actually have a meeting. So if those things aren't happening, maybe reach out. But boy, I can't really say that there's too much need for improvement right now. So
You're just being nice, obviously.
no, not at all. Not at all.
I would say that Dale, Brian, and Joe, John, are not doing as good a job as Paul and myself. But that goes without saying.
Yeah, they could have set aside the time, but I'm not going to throw stones because I want them to come back next year too. I want them to continue on for the second semester. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Joe, as we wrap things up here, if parents or, maybe even, some parents are sitting down with their students and their kids, looking at this down the road, is there, run through the best ways to contact you, or maybe go to the district website so they can get their questions answered about this?
District website, they can make an appointment with their counselor. Again, feel free to make an appointment with myself. They can come by and see me first hour of the day, which is our flex period. It's like an assisted study hall. So they can just drop in at any point, at any time. My room number is N237 until I get to incubator. And that's N107, that's 11th hour. So I'd say that a large part of the day, they can come to N237, get some information from me. Parents, again, you can email me directly. You can go on the business, department, CTE, business aspect of it. And my email is out there, as well as, just get in touch with Melinda Cattell, and we can take and answer all of your questions.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you. Jock, thank you as well.
You're always welcome. Sean, are you a DeKalb graduate?
I went to the other town's high school, and I'm not talking about Sycamore.
Okay.
I went to Rochelle.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you're from up there. All right.
We won't hold that against you.
Right.
I thought I was going to say reform school, Sean. That's where you went.
Well, this prison high school? No, I'm just
that
kidding.
counts.
No.
That counts.
Yeah.
It's just a
No,
sky.
I went to Rochelle. It was not a prison. It's the hub city, and I don't want to have to explain that.
No, forget that. Yeah.
Nothing against Rochelle. I just don't. Everybody asks me what's a hub, and then I got to go through and explain it. It's tough. It's difficult. It's like a whole class.
Well, Joe could handle that if you told him.
I'm still not. The town's in the middle. All these little towns go around. It's a hub. That's where it comes from.
Makes sense.
All right. Well, we're done with that. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for being part of this webinar series. We appreciate it, and good luck to the program. I was going to try to be part of it. My schedule wasn't going to allow it, but I have a feeling that some way, somehow, I'm going to get ingrained and involved into this project a little bit further down the road. So I look forward to working with all of you, because I know none of you are going to leave. You're going to love it so much, you're going to keep doing it, right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
All right, gentlemen, thanks for being part of this small business development webinar in partnership with Kishwaukee and Waubonsee Community Colleges. Gentlemen, thank you. Have yourself a great day, and we look forward to working with all you guys in the future. And this is 94.9 WDKB.
Thanks.